where the moonlight glows.
Welcome to the Zombie Story Zone, the ultimate destination for spine-chilling tales of the undead. Tonight, we bring you a gripping Christmas thriller, Silent Night, Undead Night, where a peaceful holiday turns into a battle for survival. If you love thrilling zombie stories, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and press the bell icon so you never miss an update. Share this story with your friends who enjoy a good scare. And let's keep the zombie fever alive. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below to tell us what you think and how we can make our stories even better. Now get ready for a wild ride into the heart of horror.
Final flight will unite as the horror unfolds. In the zombie story zone, adventure never grows old.
The frosty air of Christmas Eve settled over the small town of Winter Hollow like a soft, glittering blanket. Snowflakes danced in the glow of streetlights, covering rooftops and tree branches with shimmering white. The sound of carolers drifted through the streets, their voices a sweet harmony of tradition and joy. The quaint church at the heart of town stood adorned in festive splendor, with a towering evergreen draped in golden garlands and twinkling lights dominating the lawn. Inside, pews were filled with townsfolk dressed in their holiday best, waiting for the midnight service to begin. Children squirmed in their seats, their excitement barely contained, while parents exchanged warm smiles over the choir's soft melodies. Father McAllister, the church's beloved pastor, approached the pulpit with a serene expression. His white robes flowed as he raised his arms, calling for silence. "Tonight, we gather to celebrate the birth of our Savior," he began, his deep voice resonating in the hushed sanctuary. "Let us find peace in His love and strength in His light." As the congregation bowed their heads in prayer, a muffled commotion from outside the church broke the stillness. At first, it was easy to dismiss the crunch of footsteps in the snow, perhaps a latecomer hurrying in. But then came the low groan, a sound that crawled under the skin and tightened hearts with dread. The church doors creaked open. Heads turned as a man stumbled inside, his face pale and eyes wide with terror. Blood dripped from a gash on his neck, staining the pristine white of his scarf. "Help," he rasped, clutching the edge of a pew for support. "They are coming." Gasps rippled through the crowd as the man collapsed to the floor. Before anyone could react, another sound shattered the tense silence, a guttural growl, low and menacing, followed by the sharp slam of something heavy against the church doors. Father McAllister stepped down from the pulpit, motioning for calm. "Stay seated," he urged, though his voice quivered. "I'll see what's happening." The doors shuddered violently under the weight of repeated blows. A chilling howl echoed through the night, followed by more groans and the unmistakable scrape of clawed hands against wood. "I'll help you, Father," said Tom, a burly construction worker who always volunteered for heavy lifting. He moved toward the entrance with cautious steps, his thick boots echoing on the floorboards. The doors burst open before they reached them. A blast of icy air rushed inside, carrying the smell of decay. The creature that stumbled through was no longer human. Its eyes were milky white, its lips peeled back to reveal teeth stained with gore. Ragged clothing hung from its emaciated frame, and its movements were jerky, as though controlled by an unseen puppeteer. "Get back!" Tom bellowed, grabbing a nearby candlestick. With a powerful swing, he struck the creature across the head. It staggered but didn't fall. Instead, it lunged, teeth snapping. Chaos erupted. Screams filled the air as the congregation scrambled to escape. In the frenzy, the infected man who had collapsed earlier stirred, rising with a sickening groan. His once kind eyes were now lifeless, and his mouth twisted in a grotesque snarl. "Barricade the doors!" Father McAllister shouted, his voice cutting through the panic. Tom and a few others pushed heavy pews against the entrance as more creatures swarmed outside, clawing at the windows and pressing their rotting faces against the glass. Inside the church, the air was thick with fear. Parents clutched their children, and elderly townsfolk huddled together, whispering prayers. The infected man inside moved with unnatural speed, leaping onto a woman and tearing into her throat before anyone could react. Blood sprayed across the altar, the stark red a horrifying contrast to the white and gold decorations. Tom swung again, this time landing a fatal blow that caved in the creature's skull. It dropped lifeless to the floor, but the damage had already been done. "They are biting," someone screamed. "Don't let them bite you." Father McAllister knelt beside the woman, but her eyes glazed over within seconds. Her limbs twitched as her skin took on a grayish hue. The pastor recoiled in horror as she let out a guttural growl, her teeth snapping toward his face. "Move." Tom pulled the pastor away just in time, delivering another crushing blow to the newly risen undead. The realization hit the room like a thunderclap. Whatever this was, it spread fast. "We need weapons," shouted Sarah, a schoolteacher whose calm demeanor had turned to steely determination. She grabbed a wooden cross from the wall and brandished it like a club. The others followed suit, arming themselves with anything they could find: candlesticks, hymnals, even broken pew legs. They formed a makeshift barricade around the children and elderly, their faces set with grim resolve. The windows shattered as the undead outside broke through. Snow and glass rained down as clawed hands reached for the living. "Hold them off!" Tom yelled, swinging his candlestick like a mace. The church turned into a battleground. Survivors fought with desperate strength, using their improvised weapons to fend off the relentless horde. Blood and snow mixed on the floor, creating a macabre scene of carnage under the twinkling lights. Through the chaos, Sarah spotted an open side door leading to the church's basement. "We can regroup down there," she called, motioning for the others. Father McAllister led the children and elderly toward the exit while the remaining adults held the line. One by one, they slipped through the door, descending into the dark safety of the basement. Tom was the last to follow, slamming the door shut behind him and barricading it with a heavy storage cabinet. The basement was cold and damp, lit only by the flickering light of a single bulb. Fear and exhaustion were etched into every face as they huddled together, listening to the relentless pounding of the undead above. "What are they?" whispered a young boy, clutching his mother's hand. "No idea," Tom replied, wiping blood from his face. "But they are not human anymore." "They are infected," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the terror in her eyes. "We saw how fast it spread. We can't let anyone who's bitten stay with us." Her words hung heavy in the air. The group exchanged uneasy glances, silently checking themselves and each other for wounds. Father McAllister cleared his throat. "We must stay strong and protect each other," he said. "But she's right. If anyone is bitten, they can't stay." The pounding above grew louder. Cracks formed in the wooden floorboards as the undead pressed against the barricades. "We can't stay here forever," Tom said. "We need a plan." "There's a back exit," the pastor offered. "It leads to the cemetery. If we can make it there, we might be able to reach the old caretaker's shed. It has tools and a truck." "It's risky," Sarah said, glancing at the children. "But staying here is worse." The group gathered what little they had: flashlights, spare candles, and makeshift weapons, before carefully unbarricading the basement's back door. The cemetery was eerily quiet, the snow muffling their footsteps as they crept through the gravestones. Moonlight illuminated the scene, casting long shadows that played tricks on their minds. They had almost reached the caretaker's shed when the first groan sounded behind them. "They are here!" Sarah shouted. The group broke into a sprint, dragging the children along as the undead emerged from the trees, their moans piercing the silent night. Tom threw open the shed's door, and they piled inside, slamming it shut just as the first zombie reached them. The pastor grabbed a shovel, reinforcing the door while Tom and Sarah frantically searched for the truck keys. "They are not here!" Sarah cried, panic rising in her voice. "Keep looking!" Tom barked. Outside, the undead pounded against the shed, their grotesque faces pressed against the tiny windows. The group worked in frenzied unison, shoving furniture against the walls and arming themselves with rusty tools. Finally, Father McAllister held up a set of keys. "Got them!" The group burst out of the shed, fighting their way through the horde. Tom swung his shovel like a scythe, clearing a path to the truck. They climbed in as the undead closed in, their moans deafening. The engine roared to life, and the truck lurched forward, plowing through the snow and scattering zombies in its wake. As they sped away from the church, the town, and the nightmare that had unfolded, silence settled over the group. "Where do we go now?" asked one of the children. Father McAllister looked out the window, his face solemn. "Anywhere but here." The truck disappeared into the snowy horizon, leaving Winter Hollow behind, a ghost town overrun by the undead, its once bright Christmas lights now dimmed by darkness and despair.
That's how the story goes. Grab your gear, hold on zone, where the brave don't fear the dead. Welcome to the zombie story zone, where the tales of the undead are widely known. Try to hunt, uncover the fright in the zombie story zone. We'll survive the night.